Welcome to another episode of What's Up with Wendy's podcast. Today's show, Cooking at Home Made Simple, and his client list reads like the who's who of Hollywood, from Gwyneth Paltrow to Charlie Sheen to Jessica Alba and so much more. Celebrity chef Ronnie Wu is joining me, and you won't want to miss this. And also, you'll hear what his name of his new book is, and it has something to do with what his mother always asked him. You won't want to miss this. My guest today, whose clients list reads like a who's who of Hollywood, from Gwyneth Paltrow to Jessica Alba to Charlie Sheen and so much more. The list goes on. He is the chef and owner of the hottest LA-based private chef company specialized in 4-star dining experiences, joining me to share some tips on cooking at home made simple, which we also need right now during this pandemic. Welcome to my show, Ronnie Wu.
Hey, thanks for having me, Wendy.
Thanks for being here. I'm excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to talk to you.
So, Ronnie, I have to back up a little bit. So you went from modeling to becoming a chef. How did you decide that that's a pretty big career change?
Yeah, it's a big career. You know, it's funny when people ask me about my trajectory to becoming a chef. It's actually way too long of a story to tell you in 10 minutes, but essentially, when I was younger, I always wanted to be a model. And so I actually moved to LA when I was 19. I dropped out of college my first year. I was in a fraternity and everything. I was ready to go. And then I dropped out, moved to LA, became a model. Eventually went back to school, got 2 master's degrees, one in psychology and marriage and family therapy to be specific, and then an MBA as well. And then at some point after graduating, I kind of had this moment where I just want to do something that I loved and to be in an industry that I love. Not that I didn't like the other ones, but something that I just was truly passionate about. And food was always sort of the thing that it was just something I thought about every day. Went to bed thinking about it, even after dinner, woke up thinking about it, and I realized that's sort of what I want to do. And, in the modeling world, I remember being dropped from a campaign because they said I looked tight in one of my pants, and I was like, how is that possible? I'm like the thinnest I've ever been. So I think it was after that moment I was like, I want to stay healthy and in shape, but being a model is a little bit of an unhealthy industry to be in. I think now it's a little bit different. I think we celebrate all people of size, all different sizes and shapes.
Back
then, which makes me sound so old. I'm not that old, but I think a lot has changed over the last few years.
I have to say, I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I'm sure you can go on, and maybe we can do that another time, but that's a great story. So the COVID lockdown has resulted in many families getting creative in the kitchen, right? Cooking up recipes for the whole family, which I think is one of the best things ever to come of COVID, because so many people are doing more things together and more things at home. Which probably results in more healthiness, I would think, because you know what you're putting into your food. What do you think of this trend of the families cooking together?
I think it's great. I mean, there's definitely pros and cons of being at home with your family all the time. But I think one of the pros is definitely being at home more, experimenting in the kitchen and just experimenting food and being creative together. I think that's really key. And I think, I love experimenting with different recipes and cuisines, and something that I'm really kind of crazy about right now is Japanese food. I've always been crazy with Japanese, but everyone loves Japanese food. And I'm using a lot of mezcal vinegars and Japanese sauces. It's an easy way to integrate authentic Japanese flavors into all my recipes at home. And the funny thing is you really only need a few key pantry staples and ingredients to whip up really delicious Japanese dishes. And they make these really delicious rice vinegars and sauces that really just tie a Japanese dish together. So I have 3 recipes today. The first one is a spicy cucumber salad, which I'm using the Mizkan natural rice vinegar. Rice vinegar is just a really classic combination of traditional flavors and premium ingredients. And then the second dish that I'm doing is a Japanese Buddha bowl with brown sushi rice. Sometimes I'm just in the mood for brown sushi rice. I think it has more texture and more bite to it. Yeah, and you make the sushi rice with just a little bit of seasoned rice, of the Mizkan seasoned rice vinegar, and it's just really delicious and really easy to make. Sushi rice is a lot easier to make than most people think. And then last but not least, I have a simple meatball yakitori, which is made with the Mizkan mirin sweet cooking seasoning, which is just a great balance of sweet, sour, and bitter. And that's actually in a lot of other things that you eat, such as simple things like teriyaki sauce uses mirin. The meatball yakitori recipe is actually on my Instagram page, which is at Ronnie Wu. And if it's not up there yet, it will be. And then for other recipe inspiration, just go to mizconflavors.com.
I love that. Okay, so what's your go-to meal besides Asian American?
Yeah, I love chicken, hence the chicken meatball yakitori. But chicken is kind of I wouldn't say go-to meal, but I don't have a go-to meal because I like to vary up throughout the week. But chicken's kind of my go-to protein. I don't know, whoever invented the chicken, I'm so happy. I'm like so grateful for you. But yeah, it's funny because I'm actually working on my cookbook right now, which is due out next year, called Did You Eat Yet? And I have a whole chapter dedicated to chicken. And yeah, thank you. It's something my mom actually always asks me, whether I'm seeing her in person or on the phone. It's literally what she always asks me. And at this point, she knows it's the name of my cookbook. So she just kind of asks to be kind of annoying and ridiculous. But, it's just a funny kind of, it's not really an inside joke anymore since I'm naming my cookbook that. But I think a lot of people can relate to that simply just because, I think it's a very nurturing, loving question. Like, did you eat it? And I love that about that question. So that's why I think it was the perfect title for my book.
That's hysterical. I have a friend that always says that to me because I'm home and I'm usually a single mom and she's like, did you eat? Did you eat? That's her line too. It's so funny.
She must love you. She must love you very much.
I know she does. Thank you. What's your staple in the kitchen?
My staple in the kitchen? You mean like an ingredient or expand that? Because I could answer that in so many different ways.
I know. I was going to say there are so many different ways I could ask you that question too. I mean, I guess your ingredients, yes.
I have quite a few. Go. What are your staples?
My staples are boring probably compared to yours. Garlic, salt, pepper. That's pretty much my staples. Lemon.
Hey, you can make a lot with salt and pepper and garlic and lemon. Hey, those are great staples. Those are my staples as well. I have obviously rice vinegar, mirin. I have fish sauce, oyster sauce, soy sauce. I have miso paste. Those are really great ways of sort of incorporating different types of saltiness and brininess and umami into different dishes. Not all salts are made the same, so it's kind of fun to experiment with different types of saltiness. And I think a lot of my staples tend to be vinegars and salty type things.
And for protein, I do a lot of chicken as well, especially during the pandemic. Chicken. What's the most versatile to cook with for protein?
The most versatile, I would say, is chicken. That's probably why I love it, because it's the most versatile protein. But if you have chicken cease to exist, I would probably say I would probably have to go with something like fish. I also try to always incorporate a little bit of fish. But the reason I love chicken is I always go back to chicken. Chicken is that it lasts for a long time. You can freeze it and it doesn't really deteriorate in quality. So I would again go back to chicken.
And I agree. And I meant to say that what would you marinate with chicken? I'm always doing just olive oil, salt and pepper with my chicken. It's boring. I need something else.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's so many ways to make chicken, and something I've been doing is teriyaki chicken, obviously, and you can make that with the mizkan mirin. But yeah, teriyaki chicken is obviously delicious, as you know. It's another thing you can make with chicken. Chicken and rice is a really great combination. There's so many different ways you can make a chicken and rice dish. There's an Asian dish called Hainan chicken and rice, and that's a really delicious, slightly gingery, really decadent dish, but also really simple and easy to make as well. I just feel like you can marinate it.
We're all going to want chicken now. If you just tune in, I'm talking to celebrity chef Ronnie Wu. Ronnie, all these celebrities, do you have a favorite who you've cooked for, or a few favorites that you've cooked for that just make cooking even more fun?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly love all of them. They're just really, really great. Mindy Kaling is super sweet and nice and down to earth. She's probably one of my favorites. But honestly, I love them all for their own specific personalities.
Well, you can come cook for me anytime. Come join my kitchen. I'm excited for your cookbook. And I tell your mom I love the title.
I know she loves it. She's like, when I first told her when I called her, I was like, hey mom, I was like, I just signed a cookbook deal, which was last year in the beginning of the pandemic, and I was like, and the name is Did You Eat Yet? And she's like, she just started laughing, and she knew exactly what I was talking about, and it wasn't even, she didn't even flinch. She just started laughing, and she says it in Chinese, which is "which translates into "Have you eaten rice yet?" Really, or "Have you eaten dinner yet?" Depending on how you want to translate it. But she just like laughed so hard, and I was like, okay, that's the perfect title. I think everyone just relates to it. It's just a nice.
I love that.
That's what I ask my friends and family too.
Right. That's awesome. Ronnie Wu, thank you so much for joining me. Come back anytime, especially when your new book comes out. I can't wait to read that, to see it, and can't wait to talk to you about that.
Thanks so much, Wendy.
Thanks so much. Stay safe and stay healthy.
You too. Bye-bye.
On this episode of What's Up with Wendy, you'll remember her best from the hit show Sister Sister. Tamera Mowry-Housley is joining me, and we're sharing tips and experiences surrounding mental health and wellness. You won't want to miss this. My guest today, actor, producer, host, entrepreneur. She was the co-host of the Emmy award-winning talk show The Real for 6 seasons, and we remember her well for starring alongside of her sister, Tia, in the hit show Sister Sister. Welcome back, Tamera Mowry-Housley. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
I'm good. I haven't talked to you in such a long time. So tell us.
A lot has changed.
A lot. I know that I was reading about all the changes. So how have you and your family been? Such challenging times this past year. You're raising 2 kids. This pandemic has really, done something to all of us. How have you guys handled it? Right. And how's everything?
It's been, there have been good days. There have been challenging days. Having, a family locked down for a very long time. In the beginning, being a working mom, it was kind of like exciting. Because I am the type of person to make lemonade once I've been given lemons. I was like, okay, this is a great time for all of us to kind of just love up on each other. Being a working mom, sometimes you have that guilt. You're missing out on certain, things in your children's lives. I have an 8-year-old son, a 5-year-old daughter. So they are going through, that whole, that elementary phase of, figuring out, what they like, what they don't like. But at the same time, while the pandemic, just the lockdowns kept getting longer and longer and you had different phases, that's when the reality really started, to set in. You started to get cabin fever. You started to have a little anxiety, stress started to trickle on in. And I realized at that moment, it was really important to make sure that we balance all those anxieties by making sure our physical health and our mental health was in check. And I'm just so grateful for services, telehealth services like Teladoc, where you can actually get that comprehensive care within 24 hours, 7 days a week. You can talk to a variety of specialists, whatever you're going through. Whether you have a question regarding, your children, you could speak with a pediatrician. Whether you have a concern about a rash that is, developed, you have this telehealth at the, at your fingertips, and that helped ease a lot of the, anxiety. And, what's really important is mental health. I feel like, there have been a lot of people who struggled with that during this pandemic. So I'm grateful that we have services like, Teladoc out there that knows the importance of that.
It's amazing, because at the beginning it was kind of like, is this really real? Like, are we really living? And you said, like you said, you have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. I have kids in college. So it kind of affected, like, from parents to the kids to every age. It was just like, our whole world changed within seconds. Telehealth, mental health, and specialty visits are spiking at over 500% compared to last year alone.
And that's what I'm saying. That's